Hello there, welcome back to my channel. Today is Wednesday, November 19th. That sounds right. Tomorrow we are having our parent peek, which is an opportunity for families to come into our classroom and just get a little peek at the action, see what we're up to. And last year I vlogged parent peek. We did a whole fruit theme. I dressed up as a banana. It was about as interesting as it sounds. But this year we are doing something different. We are doing a STEM project. So I thought it would be fun to take you along with me, show you behind the scenes. We're gonna talk about what the STEM project is, how it ties into our curriculum, how I am giving instructions to students, how I'm organizing materials, all of the things. So let's jump into it. Let's kick this off by going over what Parent Peek is, because this is obviously something that my school does, and I know it may not be done everywhere, or you may do it but call it something different. So the Cliff Notes version is Parent Peek is basically an opportunity for families to come into our classrooms and get a peek at what we're doing. Now, every grade does a parent peek, but every grade does it a little bit differently. In fourth grade, we do parent peek during science because science tends to be very hands-on and it just allows for a lot of good opportunities for families to see what we're doing in class. Now, as I mentioned last year, I did vlog Parent Peek. We did a whole fruit theme and we basically had students visit different stations and it pulled in things that we had done prior in the school year. So it was almost like a review of what we had learned up until that point, and we made it all fruit themed. I forget how exactly that started, but I did end up dressing up as a banana.
Because I feel like a banana split.
And last year I think Parent Peek went well. But this year, we wanted to change it up a little bit and just make it more interactive because we felt like families last year came and were just kind of standing around the perimeter of the room while students rotated. And because we did rotations and it's such a short period of time, it's like 30 minutes, we felt like students were not really doing a deep dive into the content. It was very surface level because they had to rotate after like 4 minutes. And so this year we decided, you know what? It would be really cool if we did some kind of a STEM project. That way, parents and families get to see kind of more of that out-of-the-box creative thinking. They get to see some of those engineering skills come into play, but then they can also join in. And I am very much a proponent of, hey, if you're here, like, I want you diving in. So let's talk about how I shared this with families before the big day tomorrow. So first of all, we choose our dates for Parent Peek early on in the school year. So it has been on our school calendar for a while. Families are aware of it. But about a week in advance, I send out an email to families. I'll put a screenshot of like basically what I sent to families. I'll obviously take out the pertinent information, but I sent this out to families and it just gave them a rundown of what to expect. And it was almost like a virtual invitation, like, hey, we would love for you to come join us. Here's what we're planning on doing. But notice I didn't give them all the details because I do want there to be like a little element of mystery, if you will, but I want them to have a general idea of what to expect. I also included in some guiding questions that they can use during that time to help engage in the content with their student. And then of course, when they get here, I'm gonna be like, jump on in. Like, I would love for you to be a part of this. We also create a Google form that parents can like almost use to pre-register saying, hey, yeah, I'm gonna be there. That way it makes the check-in process for families a little bit easier in the front office because they have an idea of who's coming. They can pre-print badges and all of that good stuff. But that being said, families can still show up even if they didn't pre-register. But I have been keeping a list of who has pre-registered just so I have a general idea of about how many families to expect. Now, our current unit in science is all about energy. So we started by talking about energy transfer. Then we talked specifically about how electrical energy travels. So this was focused on circuits. And then we did a little kind of mini unit on conductors and insulators. We were a little crammed for time, if you will. But this is what my current word wall looks like. So I like to hang up things from our investigations, like when we created waves, we had water waves. We also had sound waves by plucking the rubber band. We built circuits, and I have this hooked up here with a switch switch. So if I close the switch, the light comes on, so it's kind of interactive. And then we have baggies showing the different items that we tested to see if they were conductors or insulators. Now we use McGraw-Hill for science, and typically most chapters will have some kind of a STEM connection where it will give information about a career that's related to what they're learning in science, and then it will give like STEM projects that they can do that tie into it. We typically don't have time because our science block is so short, and obviously when there are other things going on, it messes with the schedule. But when we were looking at this current chapter, which our plan is to wrap it up just before, actually I guess just after fall break. Next week is fall break, y'all. I can't wait. But we are gonna be wrapping up the chapter, and so we realized, hey, this is the perfect opportunity to do one of those STEM challenges. And because we're talking about energy transfer, our STEM connection is Rube Goldberg, which if you're not familiar with Rube Goldberg, he went to school actually for engineering, but he was a cartoonist, and he would draw these cartoons illustrating these kind of elaborate ways to perform simple tasks like turning on a light. But it would go through a series of chain reactions. So like dominoes, which knock over a marble, which rolls down a ramp, which ends up hitting the light switch. And they're called Rube Goldberg Machines. So essentially our students are gonna be building Rube Goldberg machines in order to transfer energy, and we're gonna talk about the mechanical energy, the light energy, the sound energy, and they're gonna create a machine that will perform one task. So we are giving them 3 choices. They can ring a bell, they can turn on a light, or they can pop a balloon. Now, y'all know I love to teach using slides. So these are the slides that I created to go with this. In order to introduce it to students, I asked them if any of them have ever played the game Mousetrap. And of course, a couple of students raised their hands. So I had them explain how it works and what the goal of the game was. Now, of course, some of my students have never played this before. So I inserted a video. This is a commercial, yes, from the early 90s of Mousetrap. So I played this for them. The video just came from YouTube, and I told them that this is a Rube Goldberg style contraption. It creates a series of chain reactions. So play the video. Then this is one of those GIF or GIF images. I just pulled it from Google and inserted it in, but I mentioned how a Rube Goldberg machine completes a simple task using a series of chain reactions, and it's named after Rube Goldberg. This is a screenshot from our textbook that kind of goes over a little bit about him. And then I showed them a picture of one of his most famous sketches, and we kind of talked about well, what do we think is happening? And then I found this animated version that's also a GIF or GIF that I just pulled from Google. So I thought that that was kind of a cool way to show them hey, it's made for wiping his mouth with a napkin, but it goes through it in the most ridiculous way. Then our book also includes a video about Rube Goldberg, just goes into a little bit more detail. So we watched that video. Then we talk about how Rube Goldberg machines use energy transfer, and they also use a lot of simple machines. Now, thankfully, my students are actually already familiar with simple machines because they recently had kind of this invention unit in reading. It was called Eureka, and so they had to create inventions, and as a part of that, they learned simple machines. But we talked about the transfers of energy. We reviewed simple machines. This was a Scratch Garden video, which my students absolutely love Scratch Garden whenever it comes on. Super cute little video that reviews the simple machines. I also put in an image for them to reference. And then I gave them the objective for this design challenge. So their goal is to design and build a Rube Goldberg machine that can transfer energy to complete a task using the given materials. So today and yesterday, they were completing steps 1 and 2, brainstorming ideas and then creating a plan with their group. I did a quick vocabulary review. So we talked about energy, we talked about energy transfer, and I like to use lots of images, and again, those GIFs or GIFs just to make it a little bit more visual for them. Mechanical energy, sound energy, light energy, electrical energy. And then I gave them their 3 choices. So they can either try to ring a bell, turn on a light, or pop a balloon. And I told them as a group, they're choosing one task for their machine to perform. Then I showed them the materials that they will have available. I actually shared a little bit about this in a vlog a couple weeks ago, we had a professional development day, and one of my team teachers and I basically just went to our science resource room and tried to pull a bunch of different materials we thought students would be able to use. Yesterday and today, when they were doing their planning, they did not have access to these materials. I have pictures so they know what it looks like, but they are just talking through the process and coming up with ideas and designing a prototype. They are not getting their hands on any of the materials until tomorrow during the actual parent peak. Then we talked about what if it doesn't work and kind of embracing failure and being okay with that. So again, this is something they're familiar with because they recently did a challenge in reading, but I just like to remind them of it. I also shared this super adorable video from YouTube. It's a compilation of Rube Goldberg Machines from Sesame Street, but I set the video to play at a specific time. And this is Kermit building a Rube Goldberg machine. Let me play it one more time. So he goes through and he kind of shows like the different steps, and then he tries it and it doesn't work. So it's a good kind of funny way just to go through that with them. I also showed them this example from YouTube with Tinker Lab because they specifically show like ringing a bell as an option. And they show like the process and the steps that it takes in order to do that. And then they try to pop a balloon, but it ends up not working. So this piece right here moves and it's not successful. So that was just a good example to kind of get them thinking. This is the slide that I had up when my students were actually working. So I told them as a group, you're gonna choose one task, circle it on your recording sheet, which I'll show you that in just a minute, design a prototype and draw pictures of it with labels and create a list of materials, because I'm gonna use that list of materials in order to get everything prepped for them tomorrow. I collected their paper at the end of the first day and today so that I can look them over, and I let them know they're gonna be given their materials tomorrow to build their prototype. I listed out the materials so they could reference them and they knew what was available, and this is the side that they were completing today. So circling one of the tasks, drawing it with labels, and then listing the materials that they needed. Tomorrow, at the start of Parent Peak, we will review the objective and go over today you are building the prototype and testing it. Again, reminding them about embracing failure, showing them another little clip from the Sesame Street. This is like at the very end when he finally does get part of it to work and he's like, it's a work in progress. This is how I'm communicating student teams. I did pre-assigned teams because I want to make sure students are in teams that will work best for them. So I like to put a lot of different kinds of thinkers in each group so that they'll be able to come up with different ideas. But you'll notice I put one student's name in red. That is a student who is the team captain. They're going to be responsible for materials. So during the actual building, if they need something else, that is a student that I will communicate with. These are the directions I will have up while they are working. So I'm letting students know what other materials are available. So if they need more, they can just ask and I can get them what they need. And then I'm pointing out on the recording sheet where exactly they will fill it in. So again, this is the recording sheet. It's nothing fancy. I just threw it together in Google Slides, but if you are interested, I will put a link and you can make a copy of it down in the description box and then customize it. But I have that objective at the top. I have the spot where they circle their task, just a blank spot where they're gonna sketch their prototype design, and then they're listing their materials. So when I collected these for my students today, I'm gonna be looking at this list of materials and I'm gonna be putting whatever it is that they need in a box. So tomorrow, when it is time to build, I am just handing them their box with the materials, and then along the way, they can make requests for more. Tomorrow, they will fill out the actual sketch of their final design and then answer the reflection question. So what form of energy did it include? What is an example of an energy transfer? And what changes did you make after testing your first prototype? And I did put the vocabulary up at the top as a reminder. So now let's talk materials. Based on what task they choose to perform for their machine, they will either get a bell. Now, I just got these in a bulk pack on Amazon. They come in all different colors, so I will link them for you, but these I did purchase with my own money, but I figured I could reuse them year after year. So if they're trying to ring a bell, they're gonna get a bell. If they are trying to turn on a light, they're gonna get the materials to build a circuit. So they'll get the light bulb, the battery, the wires, and then they're gonna get a switch. So the idea is They are gonna construct the circuit and have the switch open. Their machine just has to close the switch in order to complete the circuit. If they chose pop a balloon, I have a plethora of balloons because if they pop it once and want to try to expand their machine, they can. I told a lot of my groups when they were planning yesterday and today, it might be beneficial to have kind of like a plan A and plan B, like a simple version that they can try first, and then if they get that to work, they can try to make it a little more elaborate. Then, groups got to choose materials from that list. So one of the materials I have is just cardboard, because that can be used for almost anything. You'll notice behind me, I have this big bag of cardboard that I've been collecting for the past like 2 weeks from my house. All the Amazon boxes, don't judge me. And I've also been collecting like toilet paper tubes and paper towel tubes and things like that. So I'm not gonna give the groups cardboard. I'm gonna have it laid out on the back table, and if they want to use cardboard, they can come back and choose pieces, because I don't really know what they need. I don't know if they need a big piece or a small piece or a skinny piece or a tube or whatnot. But I'm also gonna have some tools available to them. I shared this earlier in the year and I was like, oh, I'd love to use it for Parent Peak, and it's happening. So over the summer, I went to ISTE, which was in San Antonio this year, and during the expo, I came across a booth called Make-A-Do, M-A-K-E-D-O, Make-A-Do. I'm probably not saying that right, but who knows? And it was this lady from Australia who I think was the one that kind of created the company, but it was a series of tools that can be used in order to create things out of cardboard. And I was like, huh. And I walked over, and once I started using them, I was like, I have to have these. So I had put them on my classroom wish list, and thank you. I had one of my viewers who fulfilled it, and I'm so incredibly grateful. My students, I had these out on, I guess it was Tuesday. I was like getting it ready at the back table. I basically made little baggies. So any groups that are using cardboard, they'll be able to take a baggie, and it's gonna have like the tools that they need in it. And then I also have ones with the screws. I'm gonna show you these in a second. But just getting them ready, my students were all like, what are those? And when I showed them, they're like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. So cannot wait. But basically, there is this saw piece, and it's safe to touch, so like it's not harmful at all, but they can use it to saw through the cardboard. There is this perforator tool, which once again, it doesn't hurt at all, but they can take, you can see where I was showing my students, you can take it, you run it down the piece of cardboard, it will create the little perforations, and then from there, it makes it super easy to fold and bend. There also is this screwdriver tool, so you use the end to make a hole, like so, boop. And then from there, you can attach other pieces of cardboard using these screws. So there are short ones and long ones, but basically you use the tool, let me do it this way. It just attaches at the end, and then you can use it like a screwdriver, and you can attach pieces of cardboard together. It is so cool. I cannot wait to be able to use it with them, and I think for this, it will work out perfectly. So if they are choosing to use cardboard, they will get one of these little baggies to go with it in order to construct. Some of the other things that I have over here, the funnel, I don't think I even put on the list, but like it's here. If a group asks about it, you know, I'll let them use it. We've got rubber bands, we've got bowling pins and a bowling ball, we've got tape, marbles, we've got plastic cups, tennis ball, we've got yarn, we've got popsicle sticks, we've got these like ramps, and they're kind of flexible, and we've got foil, we've got toy cars, and then we've got Jenga blocks. And a lot of my students were like, oh, there's no dominoes. And we talked about how the Jenga blocks can also be used like dominoes. So today, before I leave school, I need to get their boxes ready. Now, these were actually part of our science kits. We use them for investigation, so I just pulled them down from on top of my cabinets, and I'm going to fill up each group's materials based on what they requested from their sheets. So I'm gonna get that ready, and then it's time for Peak tomorrow.
Good morning. It is now Thursday, November 20th. It is Parent Peak Day. And compared to last year, rather than feeling nervous or anxious. I actually feel really excited, and I think that's partially because last year it was my first time, so I didn't fully know what to expect. Plus, I was still new within my school community, and maybe it's a me thing, but when I'm new, I kind of feel this sense of having to prove myself. I know that that's not accurate, it's just how I feel. Whereas this year, I feel more a part of my school community, I know what to expect, and I think I'm just more excited for the actual STEM project because my students are so excited versus last year. It's not that they weren't excited, but it just wasn't as kind of hands-on with my students really taking ownership over it compared to this. So I'm excited to see what they do and just to welcome families in. I feel like I've formed some really great relationships with families this year, and so getting to see that like pay off with events like this is just awesome. So let me go ahead and show you what the materials look like, because you can probably see them behind me. So I have all of the bins for my morning class. I have some extra Jenga blocks over here, and then the bins for my afternoon class are over there. But each group's bin has their papers on top. So basically I will just hand them the bin, and then underneath are all of the materials that they asked for. Now, depending on what task they chose, inside they will either have like circuits in order to build a light, they will have a balloon, like this one chose pop a balloon, or they will have the bell and then any other materials that they asked for. The only thing I did not include in here was tape, because how would I do that? But I'm just gonna wait and give them the piece of tape like in the moment once they get started, just, you know, stick it to the side of their desk. Then I have extra materials back here. So any groups that are using cardboard, I will offer them one of the kits. I also have more like yarn. If they ask for yarn, I put probably, I don't know, 2 feet-ish in their box, but of course they can have more if needed. I've got tape to be able to give them, scissors to cut the tape, and then I have extras of things like the ramps and the cups and the bowling pins and some other things, because some groups were very specific and said, I need 3 bowling pins, whereas other groups just said bowling pins. So I gave them 2 or 3 to start, but they will probably need more. And then as I mentioned, the cardboard is just going to be laid out across my back table. That way groups can come back and grab the pieces as they need them. Okay, I'm happy to report Parent Peak was a success. I don't think a drop of water has come into contact with my mouth all day. But it went really, really well. And I loved getting to interact with the families. They were so complimentary. It was crowded, right? Because when you almost double the number of people in the room, it's gonna be tight quarters, but my students did awesome, and just seeing their brains work and seeing the things that they would try. I had a group who was choosing to pop a balloon, and the first balloon they blew up was too small, and so it didn't have enough like surface tension with the balloon in order to pop it. So they got another balloon, blew it up bigger, and then they took a popsicle stick, broke it in order to get a pointy end, and that's what they used. They had a ramp, and I think a ball rolled down the ramp, which hit a car, which had the popsicle stick, which rolled into the balloon, and they had like kind of a bumper area set up behind it, and it worked. And then I had another group who used the yarn, and those ramps that I had, there were little holes, so they put yarn through the hole, they taped it to a golf ball, and they had it so the golf ball went down and fell through the hole, and then it pulled on the switch, which closed it. Like, it was so much fun. I had the best time, and I can finally breathe now that it's done. Even though I was excited for it, of course, you just hope that it goes well. And now that I'm on the other side of it, I can go, okay, that was great. I definitely want to do that again next year. In terms of like follow-up after the fact, I will obviously send home the recording sheet with students. And in my weekly newsletter tomorrow, I will just tell families, obviously thank them for coming. But I will also say, hey, like if you build one of these at home, I would love for you to send me a picture or a video and share it with me. So it just helps to create those school-home connections as well. But hopefully you enjoyed following along and seeing the behind the scenes. I'm happy to report that my table is actually cleaned up. I need to return switches to 5th grade, but I got the rest of it all put away like as soon as school ended. So nice clean slate for the last day before fall break tomorrow, which I am vlogging. I'm actually gonna start that vlog as soon as I end this one, so be on the lookout for that one. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed this one, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss the new videos as they come up. And as always, thank you for watching. I love you so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one.